So
Yeah, God damn it. Life sucks. You suck.
all those people, all those things. It's the man. It's the man.
Yeah.
Actually, I've never written from the man before. I've thought about writing from the man a few times, but I bet that would get some serious polarization. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
So
everybody has their own definition of what they mean or what they think the man means to them.
the subject line could just be bleep the man. Right?
F the po.
Yeah. All right. So I'm trying to figure some interesting things out in my life, Joshua Shafran.
Do tell, Tellman Knudsen.
I shall. Do you have any idea how many times people try and fail to make like Tellman puns and jokes, and it just never quite comes out right? It happens a lot.
I can imagine, but no.
No. So here's the deal. Basically, what?
I was just going to say, first off, what do you mean by adulting? When you say the word adulting, what does that mean to you?
I think it's the first time I've used the term in the written form, and I don't think I've ever talked about it, but I've heard other people reference adulting. And I think that people who are like maybe in their 30s or something right now, it's a popular term to use. I'm a little bit old for the term adulting, which is kind of ironic, right? But basically what I'm talking about is having your shit together in your regular life. Now, so I'm trying to figure out how to do this, and I'm finding I'm having a hard time, and I'm filled with an enormous amount of internal conflict around it. So, okay, backstory. You know the backstory, but not everybody else does. So here's the backstory. I started my first business when I was 19 years old on my first date with my girlfriend, who became my wife, Jody. We started this business together, the salsa company, on our first date. And basically we were together for 22 years from that day forward. Okay. We started multiple businesses together, or she was my like rock support system in my life while I was out there risking it all, trying to figure out how to rub a couple stones together and make a spark in the middle of the, dark rain and sometimes it worked, but a lot of times it didn't, you know what I mean? And
I do.
And so anyway, as like Jody and I have been going through a divorce for 2.5 years, and I've been my company is extremely small right now, just a few core people, and I'm living by myself most of the time. And I'm like, whoa, there are all these things in my regular life that I haven't actually had to do as an adult to like keep my life running well, right? And these were all things that what happened was at first, so Jody and I were together. She was working a job, helping me as much as she could with my entrepreneurial, like crazy ideas until they actually started making money. And once they started making money, and then we started working together and all these kind of things. And what I have been discovering is that there are all these like habits or routines or rituals on like day-to-day living that I despise. I like all this routine crap that people have to do every day in order to keep their personal and normal lives functioning, that is boring, uninspiring, not interesting, not engaging, and feels like a complete and total waste of time, certainly brain power, body power. So I'm doing like things that anyone can do, like day-to-day stuff. And what I found in my entrepreneurial journey was that I learned over time as an entrepreneur to specialize, to really hone and refine and define my marketing and business skills to the point where I'm doing that as much as possible. And I hire people and I build a team to do all the other things that I suck at. And I've been thinking about that for 20 years. I mean, it evolved over that time, but ultimately it's like, do the things that make money in the business, do the things that provide a response, and having a partner, having a spouse who then would pick up the slack for all the day-to-day stuff in my life, right, was awesome, but I didn't know how awesome it was. I didn't know, right? And so now I'm in this situation where my company's pretty small, and I'm in charge of my whole personal life as a solopreneur. And frankly, I don't really want to be. Number one, because it seems like I'm spending my time doing a whole bunch of pointless, useless, dumb stuff. And I'm trying to figure out how to find, just personally as an individual, I'm trying to figure out how to find balance in my personal life and business life and still be able to get everything done to a reasonably good degree, and finding myself doing everything much more mediocre than before. And in the past, I just did a lot fewer things, and the fewer things that I did really well. But my life has shifted, and so I'm responsible for a lot of types of details and thinking and routines that I simply haven't had to deal with. I'm 43 now, and had a partner for 22 years, and so I'm trying to figure that out. And I'm curious about what you and all of our viewers have to say about that.
There's a lot to unpack there, man.
Oh, there's a pile. There's a big pile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some good stuff in there to unpack in many different ways. The first thing that just comes to mind for me is, if you just kind of put that on Jody or somebody else to do that stuff, and it's stuff that is meaningless to you, and do you know if it's something that fills them up, right? And does that does your lack of willingness to see appreciation for those people that will do it or that are doing it, is that creating extra friction in your life?
Yeah, extra tension.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, and negative friction. I mean, there's positive tension and negative tension, right? But I mean, like, one of the things that I have to do right now that Kathy absolutely hates is I refuse to go into negative states of mind. Like, when she wants to tell me about her day, and if it's at all negative, I sit there and I appear to be listening, but I tune it out.
Right.
And I tell her, I'm tuning you out because I cannot afford to have my head go there.
Right.
She hates it.
Right.
She hates it because it is creating a wedge between us. But I feel like that's something that I have to do to keep my head screwed on right, so that I can make progress with what I want to, do professionally, and ultimately is going to, benefit her. Like, I just can't afford to sit and get into a bitch and gripe session. It just isn't going to, and if she wants to do it, that's on her. Like, there were plenty of time back in the day when I used to take it upon myself to try to fix the other person in the conversation.
Right.
And it's just, so there's that piece of it. I'm not sure that that's the right way to go. I know it is what I've got to do to continue to stay building momentum forward with what I'm committed to completing in professionally. But it does create a negative space. And so sometimes when I hear the things about hiring other people where, to make up for what you're lacking, sometimes what I see happening, and by the way, I'm the worst at this. I'm not really good at it. I'm very, like delegating is a weak spot for me in general. But one of the things that I learned the hard way when I was running a team, and I've had personal teams as big as, 31 employees on an outsourced basis in the Ukraine, offshore, and 62 a payroll of 62 employees was the height. So, I mean, it's not like I don't have experience with it, but I suck at it. And one of the things, though, that
at managing or building the team or hiring or just all of the, like, which piece?
well, I'm really good at providing the proper vision for people
Mm-hmm.
and really unifying them once I'm clear on it and once I see what needs to happen, pulling the team together. But when the team is inherited or something of that nature where it's not homegrown, and I've had experience both of those things, it becomes problematic in those regards. But one of the things that, like, when I was building out, I was resistant to building my own team again because of the just the drain that I experienced during that height of that many employees. And I mean, that was the time when I used to have to come in the office at literally 2:30 in the morning to 3 a.m. every single morning, because I couldn't, the work that I got done between 3 a.m. and 8 a.m. when people would start to come in was all of my focus for the day. And because everything else got, tied up with me being pulled by other people and needing my input and building it out. And the danger that I see is, and I think it carries over to adulting in, your personal life as well, is when you make the assumption that somebody else is going to handle it, that you're,
Right.
and when your attitude about that is unappreciative, because to you it's bullshit, right?
Right.
And so I think it leaves a sour taste in people's mouths, even if they are brilliant at it and they're happy to pick up the slack on it. But if what they're doing isn't appreciated and is looked down upon, I think you can count on it blowing up eventually downstream on some level.
Yeah, that was part of a conversation I had this morning, as a matter of fact. Part of the conversation. No, it's true. I'm like, okay. So, like, if you take the concept of unique ability, right? Hone and refine and get what are you best at, and spend 80% of your time doing that, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense within the confines of business, right? It also makes sense within the confines of, like, almost anything that's in some way achievement oriented.
Sure. Or life in general. I mean, but here's the thing, it's that the tendency to just focus in on your needs.
Right.
My unique ability.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a step beyond it. And that's where, strategic coach goes in the later years, which is building a unique ability team.
Right.
And that's hard, because generally speaking, what you've got to recruit are people that are exactly opposite you and that piss you off.
Right.
And that rub you the wrong way. Right. Those are the people that you need.
Right.
And developing the unique ability team is a whole lot different than focused in on your unique ability.
Right.
And in my experience, you take, 10 steps backwards to, take the giant leap forward. And it takes time to get over that. And frankly, that's when I decided, it wasn't the reason I decided, but it was right at the time that I decided, when I was making that transition, I decided to shut my business down in the format that it was in.
Do you know any? Well, I can think of one. I guess we probably shouldn't, like, name people. I don't know. For the moment, we probably shouldn't name people. But the question is, do you know any wildly successful, let's just say wildly successful direct response internet entrepreneurs, just to kind of, like, pigeonhole it,
okay,
who also are single, who or who just have their own place, and hey, maybe they date, maybe right, but who don't have a serious long-term committed partner, but they're crushing it in business, and they don't have a primary support person as a spouse, for example. I'm trying to think. And I can think of one.
I've been out of the circle so long that
Yeah.
I don't even have, I mean, like, it's not to say that I can't think of any either, but it might be because I just don't know
Yeah, I'm curious
people
about
anymore,
strategies and
I think the danger, though, is to get stuck in. I have this friend, and I'm not going to name names,
yeah,
but I have this friend, and when he's in a relationship, he needs to get out of it because he can't focus, because it's taking up all of his time. And he just needs to get out of it, and so that he can devote all of his time to focusing on his personal professional pursuits. And as soon as he doesn't have a romance in his life that's significant to him, he then switches the exact opposite. I need somebody in my life. As soon as I can get somebody that's a good support system,
right,
that's a teammate, then I can focus in and feel good
right,
about working again. And,
right.
The thing is that he ain't
Yeah,
like,
you're always going to be chasing the rabbit.
yeah, I think I think it was Jim Rohn who said, you ain't never nowhere, like when you're home, you're there. When you're there, you're home. And you ain't never nowhere because you're this wandering generality instead of like a meaningful specific.
Generality. I hear you.
That's a Jim Rohnism. For sure.
I actually haven't consumed much Jim Rohn.
Oh man,
No.
He's brilliant, brother. Brilliant. Anyway, the thing that I like about Jim Rohn is that he lived a very balanced life. He's passed away now, probably 10 years plus now. But, there was a time, and there probably still is, that, like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, everything that was in the personal development world can be traced back to, having its roots somewhere in a Jim Rohnism.
Right.
But he lived a very balanced life, and he got it. And he got the difference between motivation and inspiration. He got the difference between ambition and just raw, got to get shit done for the sake of getting shit done, got to be busy for the sake of being busy, versus ambition, like building something specific in the world that's meaningful to yourself and to others, and that you're on that kind of path, and doing it in excellence, meaning that you're there with your family, you're there with your employees, you're there with your team. Like I intentionally, personally, in the last 12 years or so, went back to being, solopreneur. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's ideal, because, it definitely, I can stay trapped in that, trying to be well-rounded and getting good at what I'm weak at. But I've also gotten really good at stuff that I wanted to get good at. That I had an interest in, that I sucked at before, but that I really, I was curious to figure it out, like media buying and driving traffic, and some coding and programming, and just understanding some of the actual, not just understanding how a developer, a coder thinks, but like understanding some of the nuances behind it, so that when I come up with one of these crazy marketing ideas, I understand what's involved on the tech side of it. Not that I want to be a developer, but I enjoyed, learning that stuff. I took programming classes and stuff like that, and it was enjoyable. I also confirmed that I shouldn't be doing it. Like it's a hobby, sure. So the idea of having a team is thrilling to me from the standpoint of having it built already. Mm-hmm. The idea of building it makes me want to run and hide the other way. And I think that carries over to life, personal life also. And I remember, in our early years of marriage, Kathy and I, that she was shocked when like I'm happy to let her do laundry and the cooking or whatever it is that she wants to take on. But I'm also plenty happy to do it myself, and I'm perfectly capable of doing all of it myself. I don't have like this thing like it's got to be the woman or whatever.
Right.
I was raised to do my own laundry from Jump Street. From the time that I was literally 6 and 7 years old, I was doing my own laundry in an apartment building. So like that kind of responsibility doesn't, whatever.
So with me growing up, right, my parents attempted to raise me to be good at doing chores around the house and that kind of stuff. Like my younger sister, 3 years younger than me, she crushed it, did great. And
that's just her natural personality, or
ever since, yes. And like clean, neat, and organized, got it dialed in. Like you can count on Sarah to like, great. But like, left to my own devices, my room and my car have always been a mess. Admission. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm 43 years old and I still have a messy bedroom. What's going on here? And so that's an adulting situation where I'm like, man, I am not a teenager, but my bedroom right now looks like I'm a teenager, but I don't even see stuff like the physical stuff around me. I don't even notice it's there most of the time.
Yeah, except, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
And again, it relates back to a Jim Rohn program that I was listening to at the time, before I had my first taste of real lasting success.
Yeah.
I think it's a program called Take Charge of Your Life, and you can get it on Audible. It's awesome. I mean, it's dated, but it's
nice,
freaking awesome. And one of the things that he said in there that I really took to heart is that every discipline affects every other discipline in your life. So if you get up in the morning and you develop the discipline of making your bed,
right,
then that discipline will carry over to every other, area of your life in little minute ways, so that, you can build on it. And it also works the opposite way, right? Where you can, every slippage that you don't notice, that you're just happy to live in there, but in the back of your head, that clutter is weighing on you. Like right now, I'm looking through my camera in the back of the bookshelves there, and I see a stack of my books that it's driving me a little nuts right now, seeing it there. It's been there for 2 years like that.
Right.
And it reminds me of other stuff on the shelves in various locations that aren't organized the way that I want it to. And it reminds me of all the stuff in storage that, that I would like to have access to, that's disorganized and, that I can't. And, but I'm not thinking about it consciously, but it's there. Right. And then I think about like when I take the time to every so often I get to the point where I've had enough and I stop everything and it'll take me 3 hours to do it. But I really I go batshit crazy and clean up my office and make it perfectly organized. And it's just gorgeous. And how good that feels for the next few months, and how productive it ends up making me downstream. And I find that, when I get out of bed now and make the bed, even though it's an extra, 30 seconds to a minute out of my day, it makes me feel better when I'm walking by the bedroom and seeing it made, rather than seeing wrinkled, crumpled up sheets.
Right.
It inspires me to be more productive. It's kind of like, since we've been having our regular weekday morning meetings at 8 a.m., I'm much, much more centered, even though I always got up early, but like with what I want to get done for the day, like even before that 8 a.m. meeting, if there's something that I want to make sure that I get done, I get it done prior to 8 a.m. so that I don't have it hanging over my head.
Right.
It just makes me, that carries over throughout the day.
That's interesting. The morning meeting thing, I've worked with, earlier in this live stream, we were talking about teams and some of the frustration around inheriting teams and managing them and working with them. I found an interesting skill that I have developed over time, which is strangely, it's a management skill, which is an area in which I generally am weak. Both managing.
Yeah, but you're strong and strategic and futuristic. So those two are kind of like.
Right. I mean, look, for every strength is a weakness. Every weakness is a strength, and regardless, I'm still I have some areas where I'm getting my knees scraped up a little bit and I'm trying to figure out how to stay on the bike. So I've worked with several companies over the years, had to help them supercharge their email. And inevitably what happens is, with the bigger ones, I get involved in a percentage deal. And if I'm going to get involved in a percentage deal, that's about results. And if it's about results, then often I have to help the members of the team restructure something, aka pull their head out of their ass so they can actually get better results, because it's not always about like the email copy, right? Like if they're trying to get better results with their emails, maybe they need to make more offers. Maybe they need to start split testing on their funnel. Maybe they need more attention to detail on testing funnels before they go live. And a lot of that usually comes down to communication and coordination between team members, along with having a clear vision about what everybody's doing. And
Absolutely.
what I found is that when I run the morning meeting system that I can't say that I came up with, but I learned bits and pieces from along the way, the morning meeting system with the weekly hour-long check-in and so on, like the amount of money we make always goes up, regardless. And so it's a very interesting structure, starting with positive focus. Everybody gets essentially a 1 to 3 minute check-in. And when you have a good sized team to do basically you can't go more than 9 members and do a 15-minute check-in, right? Without it being kind of overload for everybody. And once your team grows bigger than that, then you have, it's kind of like breakout groups. You have two team meetings. But the point is that, where was I going with this around team management? Damn it. It was something really profound that now has eluded me. Either way.
Well, I mean,
morning meetings. Okay, so basically establishing those morning meetings, morning check-ins that, again, begin with positive focus, that when you're going to get on the phone with everybody, they're expected to be in a good mood whether they like it or not, right? Which is, I think, a super helpful thing, right? Because we all wake up on the wrong side of bed sometimes, and it's a good way to like spread an infectious disease to your entire company if you're all grumpy and pissed off first thing in the morning when you're getting on the phone with your team, right? And so what I found is that those morning check-ins, along with something that we actually haven't been doing, which makes a huge difference, which is KPIs, right? And everybody has a singular KPI that they're responsible for to start. And that's part of that check-in process where you're like, here's my KPI. It's red, yellow, or green. Red means I'm dead. Yellow means I'm just barely with my head above water. Green means I'm good, right? And super green is I completely kicked ass. I dramatically exceeded my numbers for the day. And then once you've reported on your number, then you say, here's what I did yesterday, here's what I'm doing today, and here's what I need help with, and it all relates back to improving that number, right? But that one little like daily check-in and training the entire team, including the CEO and or founders, is hugely beneficial to get everybody on point.
And also it can be a huge blind spot, because that's where you end up getting stuck in driving for the sake of driving, getting better, improving the number for the sake of improving the number instead of what that number represents. I'm a big believer in taking inventory and how many by when format and remaining accountable. And to me, that's what a good KPI is. But when it's just about the numbers and it's only remembered as the numbers, you lose sight, at least what I've seen personally and in other things, you lose sight of the actual purpose of the whole Megillah, like why are you even doing it? And what's the point?
Right.
What is up, Max?
Max is back.
No reception up north.
That's good. It's nice to unplug every once in a while, right?
There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, we're talking about both entrepreneurial and real life adulting, like how to deal with trying to be extraordinary and do your best work while maintaining balance and doing the rudimentary day-to-day BS that we all have to deal with. That's the way I think about it in my life anyway.
Well, I mean, yeah, and it certainly is that for each of us. We all have that list of shit that's grinding on us that
Yeah.
that we don't like to handle. I think the danger is to poo-poo it in, you know, if you're lucky enough to find a teammate in in a love interest partner basis that's happy to do those things, don't poo-poo it.
Well,
celebrate it.
I mean, that's the other thing is I don't want to get into that. So, I have a very, it is not a good, so everyone, it is not a good idea to smack talk people on the internet. Okay. Doesn't matter who they are. If you're about to say something like negative or critical about somebody else, zip it. That's what I just told myself. So, I agree. Whether or not those support, activities are enjoyed by the other person. That aside, what I'm finding is I have a backpack full of, like a very large frame pack full of responsibilities in my day-to-day life that I haven't had to deal with before as an adult. And I'm trying to figure out how to balance that with growing my company and growing my business simultaneously. And I'm finding it very challenging.
Yeah. Plus, you're at a different stage in your business development process.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, and I think it's even harder for people like us that have had big hits and remember what it was like when we were at our heights and having, millions of dollars rolling in and blah, 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 that it gets easy to, when we're starting in the startup phases again, it gets easy to think of ourselves as being there already. And we're at the rainmaker stage, both of us, in what we're doing together and what we're doing independently of one another. Right. And it's a different, it begins and ends with us right now.
Very interesting. And I'll tell you, one thing that I'm really appreciating now more than ever are the many multiple millions of dollars that I and my company has made while the rest of my life was stabilized for me and I didn't have to think about it. Because basically that's what I'm dealing with, is that I wasn't at the forefront of the day-to-day stabilization of my personal life.
Yeah. And also, I mean, yes, I totally agree with you. And it's pounding on you now because it's both at the same time.
Yeah. And
but don't make the mistake of thinking that if it was fixed on this, then you'd be able to go hog wild on the other, because it just isn't.
It's a new thing. I have to learn stuff, but I'm becoming aware of it more clearly, and it's just like, damn, how do people do this? How do you take care of all the details in your personal life and run a multi-million-dollar business?
It ain't easy.
Not any advice,
Yeah, it ain't easy. Frankly, you got to be okay with, at least in my opinion, you got to be okay with it being messy. And, it is a process of getting your knees and your bloody nose and your scraped knees a bit, because, it's an ongoing process. And the instant that you think you've got it dicked, I can guarantee you that life's going to come up and smack you in the head, because, it requires vigilance. It requires being on top of it in some capacity, whether that is finding some way to get the other stuff that you can't get done
right.
By somebody else, but that's still your responsibility to get that happening, and to empower them, to make them feel valued, and because they are valued and appreciated.
It's true.
What is the question that you have, Max?
Yes, that is the question that I have. Watch out for flying clay planters. Swoosh.
Yeah. So you're having some struggles with some clay planters being thrown in your direction, have you?
Some garden mishaps, perhaps? That was pretty good. Garden mishaps, perhaps. That's not even intentional.
You're a poet and you don't even know it.
That's right. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Well, the good news is, as we've been talking, I've been like, oh, I just came up with a whole bunch of people that are successful entrepreneurs and are perpetually single. And the question is, are they single because they're overdoing it in the entrepreneurial world, or do they have their life balance and are able to take care of themselves and their business? That is,
or does it matter? Because like at the end of the day, what do you want in your life, Tellman? Do you want to be in a relationship that's loving and supportive? I think you do. And I think you want to have a exciting, empowering business that on a professional level. I think that you want both of those. So regardless, I mean, and that's just my perception of you, from afar. Yeah. But if that's the case, I don't think it behooves you to look at anybody else other than, how can I have it all? That's true. And create from there, because the answer isn't going to be what somebody else has already done. The answer is going to be what's going to work for you.
That's right. It definitely is. I fully agree. What about you? Do you agree?
And does it matter?
I don't know if it matters or not, frankly. I have absolutely no idea anymore.
Well, 100 years from now, it's probably not going to matter.
Unless the world has been taken over by an army of Tellman androids, all laced with my DNA. In that case,
in which case, it doesn't matter to me because I want out.
It'll be good. It'll be good. All right, guys. Well, very funny live stream today, as expected. Glad we could entertain each other. This is very funny.
Well, at the very least, it put both of us in a higher frame of mind than either of us were in the beginning. Because it's kind of funny, like how the subject came about was like I've had a shitty morning. Well, I've got low energy, and I'm like, well, shit, let's just talk about that. Let's just be real about that, and so that's how this all came about. Because so often I think, like particularly in the guru circles, and I know I fell into this when I was active in the teaching circles, is that you've got to put yourself forward as though, yes, and everything's great and nothing ever sucks, and it always, nothing ever goes wrong, and everything's always easy and always phenomenal, and you're always the best at whatever it is that you're doing. And I think, a certain amount of that cockiness and arrogance needs to happen, because otherwise you wouldn't be daring enough to, put yourself forth in the world and create from nothing. But on the other hand, it's not real.
Yeah,
it sets up this false premise.
Very inauthentic, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like not admitting that I struggle with depression, like I do. And like I've done all sorts of things, from the new age stuff to the chemical, prescription stuff. And I finally have figured out the combination of both that seems to work for me. But I still, as I think many creative people struggle with, is, that entrepreneurial depression, and it's been years since I haven't been able to get up off the couch. But that used to be in my height of success. Twice a year, there would be a week or 2 week period that I couldn't get off the couch because I was just thoroughly fucking depressed.
Right.
And I had no reason by the outside world standards, but who could I talk to about it? I couldn't.
Right.
I had business partners, but I had to perform for them. Right. I couldn't give them, I couldn't show weakness, because then they would start to what's going on with Josh, and start doubting my intentions and my abilities.
Right.
And now I'm just like, screw that noise, right. Let's just call it like it is anyway.
Right. That's right.
I didn't mean to get sucked back into a further discussion on this stuff, but I think it's important.
It is. It totally is. I agree. Wholeheartedly.
And you know what I mean? Like there's not one right answer. And No, and there's not a permanent fix for anything because the world is moving around us.
Right.
Like, the universe, one thing is absolutely true is that the universe is constantly expanding. It just is. I mean, that's the law of what is. It's a constant expansion. So if you're not moving with it and you're trying to stay static and make it all right now, you're automatically moving behind because the world's expanding without you. So if you don't move with it, man, those damn anger management class drone pisses me off. Class Doan sending live virtual. Thanks, Max.
We only half understand what you're saying, but I think it's probably well intended. No, yes. Hugs from Max. There they are. All around. Awesome. All right, guys. I think that's probably it for today. What do you think, Joshua?
I think we pretty much put a nail in that one.
Time to bury the coffin. All right. Very cool. We'll talk to you all very, very soon. Tomorrow at Tune. All right. Over and out.
See ya.
Bye.